Hello everybody, I have another video for you today to kind of help you out with Chapter 9, Lesson 3. Now if you happen to go on YouTube and saw another video labeled Chapter 9, Lesson 3, this is the video you want if you're in 8th grade general math. The other video that I've already uploaded is for quadratics, which is for my algebra class. So if you're doing two-way tables in 8th grade general math, this is the video you want. So today, like I said, we're doing two-way tables. Your assignment was on page 692, numbers 1 and 2, and page 693, numbers 1 through 4. And these two-way tables are great ways to help us organize data in a way that we can see how each outcome plays out given a total, right? So like we give a survey, and we want to see how many times this happens, right? Say we survey students, right? And we want to compare males to females, and we want to see whether or not males compared to females, whether they like pop music or rock music, right? And we want to see how those outcomes play out. So I'm going to take a look at number 1 here. So on number 1, we just have to construct the two-way table. So we have 100 customers in a restaurant. So let's go ahead and circle that. We need to know that because that's how many total people were surveyed. 100 customers in a restaurant. And they were asked if they liked chicken or beef or whether they like rice and pasta. So out of 30 customers that like rice, so we know that the rice row, there were 30 people total. And out of those 30, we know that 20 like chicken, right? So you got to ask yourself, okay, now we can start to fill in these missing pieces, right? It's kind of like a logic puzzle. We have to fill in the missing parts. So out of 30, if we know that 20 like chicken, well, that leaves only 10 left for beef. There were also 60 customers that like chicken, right? So here on the chicken column, we know that 60 like chicken, so that leaves only 40 then for chicken and pasta. Right? So now you have to ask yourself, okay, what other numbers do I know? Right? It seems like we have everything put down, but if we look back at the beginning, remember we said there were 100 customers surveyed total. So this box here at the end, the bottom right, notice that's the total column. The total, we said, was 100. There were 100 people total surveyed. And that will help us fill in the missing pieces that we have. Right? So 60 plus what is 100? Well, that has to be 40. And 30 plus what is 100? Well, that has to be 70. And then that helps us find our last box, which says 30 people like beef and pasta. So that's how we fill out and construct that two-way table to summarize the data. So we don't have to explain anything there. We're just filling out the table. Now on number 2, we have parts given to us. So the two-way table shows the number of students who do or do not do chores at home and whether or not they receive an allowance. So we have to find and interpret the relative frequency of the students in the survey by columns. Now we have to make sure we look at that last word. It says columns because on number 3 it says rows. If it says columns, we want to look top to bottom. If it says rows, we want to look left to right. Okay, so if I'm looking at the columns, I'm not really even going to fill out the right-hand part, right? So I'm just going to go top to bottom. 13 and 5 give me 18. That's the total. For no allowance, that's 3 plus 4, which is 7. So to find the relative frequency, I'm going to take 13 and divide it by 18. And I'm going to go put this off to the right-hand side over here. So if I do 13 divided by 18, that will give me my relative frequency for people who have an allowance and do chores. So that's about 0.72, about 72% of those individuals. For people that did not have an allowance and do chores, well, that's about 3 out of my total. In this case, the total here is 7. So that's 3 divided by 7. And I have to round it, so that's about 0.43. And I keep going, allowance and no chores. Well, that's about 5 out of 18. So I'm going to take 5 and divide it by 18. And that's about 0.28. And my last column is 4 total people out of 7. So 4 out of 7. And that gives me about 0.57. So we have found our relative frequencies, but now we have to interpret, right? And there's different ways that you could explain this, but kind of the easiest way is to just say, okay, what is happening? What is happening more frequently, right? So more frequently, students have chores and allowance than so students have more frequently have chores and allowance and no chores and no allowance. So basically we're looking at each row, or sorry, each column I should say, and we're saying, okay, what's happening more often, right? Well, for those kids that have an allowance, chances are they have chores, right? That's happening more of the time. For those students that don't have an allowance, then they don't have chores the majority of the time, right? So we're comparing it by those columns there. Okay, so hopefully that was a little bit helpful. And remember, if you need help at any point, please feel free to email me. I know these two-way tables can be confusing, and sometimes the interpreting is a little confusing. So I hope this was helpful, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks.